So, real talk for a minute. What's the most disappointing Sonic game you've ever played? Rise of Lyric, 06, one of the storybook games, Unleashed. Like, I know there's a big hate boner for Sonic Forces right now. I don't agree, but I definitely understand. Last year around this time, I put together a little something about one of my favorite Sonic games, Sonic Lost World. I expressed how the elements of the game may not appeal to everyone, but when put together, they build a Sonic experience that is currently unrivaled, in my opinion. So now I'll talk about the Sonic game that disappointed me more than I could ever anticipate. Sonic Lost World.
Ho, 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 ho! Prepare yourself!
It's hard to put my frustrations with Sonic Lost World into words. Think of it like this. I'm in love with this girl. She was a bit cold at first, but I gave her a chance and grew to appreciate her through all of her flaws. The more effort I put into getting to know her, the more rewarding the relationship felt. Now imagine the love of my life has a twin sister. She's the spitting image of the girl I love, but she has the nastiest attitude that I've ever come across. When I try to talk to her or try to get to know her better, I end up feeling like I never should have bothered to begin with. Like, despite her looking exactly like the one that I love, I can never love her the same way because her personality makes her presence, like, intolerable. Why such a harsh comparison? Simple. I can talk about Lost World Wii U so poorly because there's actually a feasible product to compare it to. When I was coming up with my original Lost World video last year, I compared them and it felt like the Wii U version was the downgrade of the 3DS version, when it should have been the other way around. As I described it, when it comes down to it, comparing the 3DS version to the Wii U version is like comparing Sonic 06 to Sonic Forces. The 3DS version just feels like more fleshed out and creative, and in this video we'll cover why the Wii U version of Lost World fails to meet my standards. So here we are. Sonic Lost World has been released and the reviews are in. Oh, this is like entirely mixed reviews. US Gamer called it Sonic's best outing in years, versus Empire Magazine's review calling the game a cheap, cruel, crushing disappointment. I think the community as a whole also still hasn't made a solid stance on how to feel about, Lost World, other than it's a platformer not trying to be a Sonic game, and the other half of the time not trying to be a platformer. However you feel about that statement will probably determine how much you like this game. Even the story had a lot of problems, but it was more exciting than the narrative in Generations, and dare I say better than Colors too. But it's not hard to be better than garbage. So I guess now I reference my notes and I break down why this game just doesn't meet the mark for me in terms of gameplay. Just look at the levels. So my two biggest gripes with this game are the mechanics and the level design. The mechanics frustrate me, but they're not the reason I dislike the game because there are also times where I thoroughly enjoy these controls. I don't mind the mechanics once I learn them because I can convince myself the bullshit that I go through is all part of this game's learning curve. My main problem is with the levels. There are a few good levels in this game, but out of all these good levels, there's a multitude of problems between them. I think there's no better way for me to explain all the problems with this game than to go stage by stage and express my problems with each. Because although not every problem is present in every stage, it feels like each stage has unique problems due to the diverse quality of levels. So hopefully me going stage through stage doesn't make this video as long as like Radical Soda's full review, but we'll just have to see. Windy Hill. So, there you are, blue sky, wonderful color palette, and ready to start your brand new adventure. What can go wrong? Not much in this level, actually. This level allows you to get a feel for the controls and mechanics without doing much harm. You know, going back and replaying this level as you master mechanics is interesting for a few parts that allow you to do parkour every so often, like multiple pathways, places to do the drop dash technique, and a fair amount of like automation to keep the stage interesting. When trying to get the best time, you might be frustrated to learn that skipping the windmill sections are as easy as just not climbing the windmills, and the stage begins to feel a bit short. But it's still a decent level overall. Zone 2. So, this level introduces 2D into the game. So the first level is entirely 3D, this level introduces the 2D part of the game, and the quirky rounded design of some 2D sections in this game. It's a stage that's slightly difficult to just speed through because of the amount of objects in your way, but it's not a difficult stage overall. After you beat Zaz, you'll come to the conclusion that this level was extremely linear and boring, and there's probably very little reason to replay it. Also, the asteroid wisp is in this game, and it's the literal definition of useless. Like, asteroid is a new wisp, all it does is like jump and absorb stuff, you know. The way asteroid is designed, it only lasts for like 10 seconds, and the level does nothing to really expand its potential. It's really a disgrace compared to the asteroid in the 3DS version, where it was like the most fun wisp in my opinion because the levels were built around its mechanics and it worked really well in 3D. So, Zone 3. This is the first like tubular type level that you encounter. It's a really fun level to speedrun once you start to use the spin dash exploit. Think of like the Sonic Hero special stages when I talk about tubular. So the spin dash exploit works sort of... Here's a robotic representation. The spin dash exploit works sort of like the drop dash, except you start out by spin dashing and jumping only once while still holding the dash button. As soon as you land, you immediately do another spin dash without the little startup charging time, and it makes it feel like a very fluid action. Once you master this technique, the game starts to feel more like a real Sonic game, where speed is not only the focus, but the reward of understanding the game and the level design. I know people have a tendency to call this game slow, but it definitely picks up the pace with this technique. The problem is that getting too good at this stage, Zone 3 makes you realize how linear and automated it is. There's like one sort of hidden parkour section, but that's all the secrets there really is to it. Like, it's a good speedrun stage, but it has very little substance outside of that just spin dash to win, and just a few like secret pathways that are very well hidden.
Very well. Very well.
So, Zone 4, this level starts off pretty okay, using the Jack and the Beanstalk design, where it's like these just giant long structures just suspended in air for some reason. That sort of design of the first level mixed with the tubular Sonic Hero special stage design of Zone 3, except they made it into a half pipe instead of like a full tube. The problem is that after the first 40 seconds, this level also decides to mix in the 2D level design of Zone 2, slowing down the carefree automated pace you had in the first section and giving you a bunch of awkwardly placed terrain instead. It's not difficult by any means, but it's just as weird of an up and down and all around as Zone 2 was, mixed in with the need for a little more parkour and a Zaz fight that's like laughable. It's just not that engaging, especially for a Sonic game. Needless to say, it's a pretty laid back level, although Zaz does talk some crazy talk here.
Where's that little punk? I've been dreaming about pounding his sorry blue butt.
I still don't understand who thought this was okay. Because the Asteroid Wisp also makes an appearance in this stage, and it's literally just as pointless as before. For some reason, you just never see this Wisp again. Oh yeah, maybe it's because the Wisp, fucking sucks.
Get what you fucking deserve!
If you're familiar with the DLC stages, you're probably wondering why I skipped over them. Well, I can tell you it's not because I have a personal vendetta against the idea of Linked Sonic or the debut of the iconic Mario pipe in a Sonic game, to the best of my knowledge. The Yoshi level, although having some nice music, has like a World 1 Act 1 simplicity to its level design, and it's pretty tame overall, even with the piranha plants coming out of nowhere. Oh shit, is that the plant? I love the plant in Fire Emblem, like one of my favorite characters right there. Funny enough, the Legend of Zelda zone they actually made has a lot of cool secrets, But in the showcase trailer that they made back before the level came out, done by Aaron Weber, he actually tells the audience just about every interesting hidden part of the level, including the big brain bomb wisp pathway. It's not a hard pathway to find, but it helps the player think about what type of items they should be looking out for in missions. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's missions. Did I mention there were missions? No? Either way, the Legend of Zelda Zone being a mix of open level and the tubular design of Windy Hill works in his favor, as the first half is more like an adventurous hub world-like section, and the second half is a race to the finish. Still a short level if you're just trying to get from start to finish, but it's a nice touch to the bland flavor that this game has. Now, back to our regularly scheduled programming, Desert Ruins. So Desert Ruins Zone 1, probably the best stage to take advantage of the spin dash exploit. The openness of the 3D sections gives you a lot of real estate to sort of like spin dash around obstacles, even in the quicksand, that's supposed to slow you down. I abhor the 2D sections because of the flaws of the parkour system mixed with like insta-death worms. But the 3D sections are like the most open 3D sections you'll experience for like the rest of the game. So enjoy your long, giant hallway.
Let me see that hall pass.
Stage feels a bit bare at first, but the more you sort of mess around with it, the more you feel the flow of how to move yourself around things. Like it actually leaves me feeling like it's one of the best levels like in the game, which is such a coincidence because I don't think there are many good levels left in this title, and we're only in the second area. Zone 2, you start this level and you may feel like finally like I'm actually running fast, but it's completely automated. And Zone Mom doesn't stop talking. He sounds pretty stupid. I hope I don't sound that stupid. I mean, either way, this is a good level to grind for lives and has some bumping music as you go along. That's really about it. Zone 3. I think an innocent animal dies anytime I read the name of this zone. Like, I mean, this stage is no Sweet Mountain. It's a pretty straightforward 2D level with a lot of automated transitions. I've heard people say this feels very much like a Sonic 1 level, so you can feel how regressive the level design of this game is. It even uses the Mario design with the like cannon jumps, where it's like you shoot a bunch of cannons and you jump on them, and you go up the cannons like that. In Zone 4, the Mario doesn't stop. Like, I swear this is a Super Mario Bros. Wii level in disguise. If you took out the tornado chasing you and the occasional Sonic loop-de-loop. Like, people got mad at Forces for like the one auto-scroll classic Sonic section. Guess where they carried that silly idea from. This time with Zone Mom's insta-death tornado chasing you, and it's really poorly made with the automated sections in this stage.
This is no place for
There's a drill wisp here. Ooh, it adds some length to the level, but it doesn't make it interesting. What made Drill Wisp so interesting before in Sonic Colors was that it felt like there were a multitude of pathways you could take while digging through the ground, and it also had pathways above ground that you could take if you didn't want to use the Drill Wisp. Here you just use it like halfway through the stage as like a mandatory one-way ticket into the next section. No interesting twists or hidden perks from it. And they make you do it again during the boss fight at the end of the level, and it really isn't any better. Like, oh no, Zone Mom's getting away! Like, why do we even need to chase him? He was literally in the middle of his second lunch and we rudely interrupted him. Anyways, you follow Zone Mom through the ground to slap him around 2 more times and the stage over. Just don't stand where the rocks are falling or else you're gonna die instantly, because this game loves insta-kills. You're gonna see how much this game really likes insta-kills. Tropical Coast! Here we are with some nice Caribbean influenced music. Seashells down by the seashore, geography for some parkour, and some robotic quillfishes. So this is a stage with a lot of unique pathways and ways to go about it. As long as you don't get stuck in the gimmicks or the hordes of enemies, the stage has a lot of interesting pathways to offer. It honestly feels amazing. Zone 2, this is like one of those stages where I can't tell what this game is trying to be. Like, it feels more like an open hub world rather than like an actual stage, like very much like something out of Mario Galaxy. And there's a slight focus on the fruit puzzles, but like they aren't the main course. It's a fun stage, but it constantly has me asking, like, why is it here? As I smack around an old man throwing fruit magic at me. So Zone 3, this stage is like a one long serene cutscene on rails. Like it's nice to look at, but like that's about it. There's a bit of strategy with the different colored rails because red makes you go slow and green beats you up, but they only show up like every once in a while when you get close to those like spinning blades that will kill you if you run into them. So yeah, instant deaths. Alright, so here we have another fuse level, but instead of mixing the good qualities of Tropical Coast Zone 1 with something that can spice it up, it instead mixes the fruit puzzles with the up and down and all around from Windy Hill. It focuses on the simple platforming around obstacles and enemies while occasionally giving you a boost pad. I mean, this stage is like the definition of speed is a reward. You know, if you really study the level design and how to time your dashes, you could probably do some sick runs. I just think you'd suffer too much to get there. Not worth it in my opinion. Again, Fruit Ninja fails to be interesting, but you know, I guess that's normal at this point. Frozen Factory. So here we are back in another level that resembles Windy Hill. You're gonna hear me say this a lot. Except this time with, you know, taller walls and ice on the ground. You know modders had fun with this ice skating animation. So the thing about the ice is that when the ice is on the ground, you can't spin dash. So your potential for speed is significantly lower. You can like roll up in a ball, but you can't spin dash. Which, you know, rolling up in a ball is not very fast, if you can tell. Now I actually have to play the game, damn, you know? So the ice on the stage creates its own problem, right? So when you press the run button, you start to ice skate rather than actual running. But when you jump while ice skating, you do a twirl. I like the added touch of being a ballerina, doing a little bit of ballet, but it doesn't help when you want a precise jump. It's a problem that really manifests itself when you want to time a jump over this black sludge or some of these spikes on the ground. It makes it hard to control where exactly you're going to land and sort of kills that need for speed because you don't want to go too fast and then like go out of control. The second problem is the parkour. So this game's version of parkour is weird. In this way that you have to hold the run button when you touch a wall. Doing that makes you run on it for a little while and you can spin dash while running to give yourself some extra distance. Now there's two ways you can scale a wall. Vertically, which means going straight up, and what I'd like to call the Prince of Persia wall run. So in 2D, you can only do a parkour, you know, one way, vertically. You know, you can only go up in 2D when you're doing parkour. But in 3D, it's a little more complicated. In 3D, when you run towards or jump on a wall, the way Sonic travels up the wall is a bit inconsistent. Sometimes he'll go up vertically, even when you try jumping or running towards the wall at an angle. And that's not all. If you're too slow, you don't get much distance when you finally get that Prince of Persia wall run. In that case, you sort of just fall off early and it completely kills your momentum. Like you shouldn't have bothered trying to begin with. Even jumping when doing parkour is risky. Because now, when you Prince of Persia wall run with two walls against each other, you can jump from one wall to another to keep your momentum up. So if you jump at the right time, you make that transition smoothly. But if not, Sonic makes a really stiff jump in place and he just drops like he never had any speed to begin with, like a bowling ball of sorts. I don't know why this happens, but it's just weird. All these flaws together with the parkour system in this game make it feel very foreign, even when you play the game for long enough to understand the mechanic. In the 3DS version, half these problems aren't present because the 3DS version differentiates when you want to go up a wall versus when you want to run across a wall. If the wall is in front of you, you'll always go up vertically, and if the wall is sideways, you'll always run against it with like the Prince of Persia way, even if you don't hold the run button. You don't travel in like this weird arc shape, so you don't immediately fall to the ground if you touch the wall at like a weird angle. And if you're too slow, you can just press the spin dash button to boost as many times as you want, or as many times as necessary when you're running to maintain your momentum. In the 3DS version, you can you can maintain your speed as much as necessary, versus in the Wii U game, you only get one extra boost of speed, so it's very possible that you'll fall off before you reach your destination. Unlike, the Wii U, the 3DS makes the act of parkour feel very fluid in its execution. Though you might do some parkour like without wanting to sometimes, but I think that's a symptom of the mechanic in both games. Returning from our detour, Frozen Factory Zone 1's problems are like this. It feels like you're punished for trying to be creative or play the game differently. In this stage, you travel through a lot of pipes that don't bring you to a different area. Instead, they bring you to small pathways that are on top of the walls that are like on the stage initially. So you start out at the bottom of the stage, and then you go into these pipes that bring you to the top, right? And these walls, you're able to do parkour on them. In a perfect world, you should be able to skip all this nonsense in the game and do parkour up these walls if you have enough speed, because it's just a really tall wall, right? It doesn't work, and yet it feels like it should. Like, it feels like you aren't supposed to be creative until the very end of the stage, where it's like this, like, sort of hidden. It's not really hidden, but it's like you wouldn't expect it to be that, like, the pathway to the end parkour section, that if you just walked or if you just ran straight from that point, you'd just be going in circles. Versus if you went through this parkour section, it would bring you like straight, like it will bring you a pathway that goes like straight to the end of the stage. And so it's not a long stage, but the game gives you confusing signals towards like how it wants you to play through the stage, which only confuses you in the long run. Also, good luck trying to maintain consistent speed with these, stupid rotary windmills getting in the way.
Initiate rotary attack!
Excuse me for 1 second.
Of course.
Oh, well, that was wonderful. Good time was had by all. I'm pooped.
Yes, I should be. Good Lord, what is happening in there?
Aurora Borealis?
Aurora Borealis. At this time of year, at this time of day, in this part of the country, localized entirely within your kitchen.
Yes.
That's it?
Look, I don't know who can live with themselves and sleep at night thinking this is a good idea. Oh, Sonic to Snowball. Oh, you move even slower than before. Holding the run button helps a lot, but the stage doesn't tell you that. Oh, if you're not fast enough, then it's really easy for enemies to knock you off. This very wide and appropriately sized stage for a snowball. Oh, I'm dead. Again. I mean, the more you play these stages, the more you come to realize how to get around this mess, but it's like they created this stage to annoy you. Why else would they create the snowball with limited movement, tight platforming, and with Dina narrating her opinion like
it's
it matters?
It's cute the way he keeps on trying to get past all the death traps and enemies and stuff. I think he kind of likes me. I like a man who shows initiative. Mostly because I don't have any initiative.
Like the gimmick of having to be a snowball sucks and gives you no reason to ever want to touch the stage again. Other than for the, aesthetic, naturally. Because, like, seriously, serious props to whoever made this scenery. It's pretty cool.
Ooh, that was cool. Pun entirely intended.
Alright, it's a casino stage in a Sonic game that isn't Casinopolis or Bingo Highway. Like, need I say more? The stage is what it feels like when you're playing a game of slots and you get the first 2 columns and the third one is like the icon right before what you needed to get 3 in a row. Like, it looks promising when you start, but its layout is like too simple to do anything interesting, and there's just nothing motivating exploration in the stage, especially since it's very linear. Zone 4 actually has a very weird start, so you're on ice and you can't speed through the stage, and as you go through it, it has some quirky obstacles that you don't see like much in other stages. Some nice callbacks to classic Sonic, and the return of the half-pipe 3D section that we got from Windy Hill. So I think the stage is interesting, and we'll definitely come back to it after we unlock a certain something. This isn't a forest. This is a jungle, and it's not exactly silent. I already know jungles are a type of rainforest, so forest isn't completely inaccurate, but like when something is a jungle, you should just call it a fucking jungle. So here's the next reimagining of Windy Hill Zone 1. A little more green this time, you know. I actually really like this level. It has unique enemies, multiple pathways, and a good use of the parkour system without too much automation. Unfortunately, like most of the good levels in this game, once you start to get a feel for the level and, you know, all of its interesting elements come together, it abruptly ends. And, you know, that's sort of the sad part. But I think it's one of the better levels in the game.
Myself from a deep depression for this? This whole battle thing reeks of effort.
Alright, shut up, Zora, we get it. You mean Little Mac.
As a matter of fact, I've already pretty much given up on hope, happiness, success.
I know, it sucks, but it's life. So by this point, we've seen Windy Hill Zone 1's level formula transformed and used multiple times for the first zone's use of new areas like Tropical Coast, Frozen Factory, and even in Silent Jungle. So for Silent Forest Zone 3, we now have to revisit the other good level in Windy Hill Zone 3. Honestly, this is an amazing stage, probably one of the best in the game, which says a lot. But it reveals another point where I have a problem with this game's design. It's not entirely the fault of this level, but rather this level helps show some of the problems with this game. So this level has the same tube situation as the stage in Windy Hill. There are boulders that track your movement as they move towards you, and your job is to attempt to avoid them with moss on the ground that significantly stunts your movement.
Oh, dang it, dude!
Now before, you had a spin dash to easily speed around the boulders, but now you have ice, which makes spin dashing impossible. So now you'd have to use the real estate given to you to just like dodge them normally. There's just one section in the stage where the problems from before manifest, right? So the Prince of Persian wall run makes it easy to screw the run up. You know, jumping is inconsistent, you only get one boost. Now mix all that with the fact that when you jump when doing parkour, you immediately do the Prince of Persia wall run on the next wall you land on. Meaning that if you get a bad angle when wall running and you don't get the distance, jumping to reach the wall in front of you, even when the wall is like vertically placed, you'll still do the Prince of Persia wall run on it, and you'll run across it rather than up it. This isn't a situation that happens much in this game, so you might not even know how this aspect of parkour works until you get to this point. Like, it's an annoying mechanic that makes this game more complicated than it has to be. And like I stated before, the 3DS version wouldn't have this issue because once it recognizes you're on a wall that goes vertically, oh, this is then you want to go up instead of sideways. In the same situation, it would recognize that a wall is meant to be climbed horizontally, or like when a wall is meant to be climbed horizontally and when a wall is meant to be climbed vertically. So although that hiccup may cause you to feel unnecessary deaths and make trying to run through the stage frustrating, the stage is still fun and, you know, one of the best stages in the game. Overall, it suffers from the same overly simple problem I have with most levels, but it does spice up the challenge, interestingly enough, to be ahead of the others. So I guess this is where the silence comes from. You know, like an impenetrable tropical jungle turns into like remnants of like lost societies. Honestly, the stage has a pretty nice aesthetic and even some nicer music. Some of my favorite in the game, honestly. Too bad the up and down and all around returned here with so many pitfalls that gravity will work against you here quite a bit. This level design, like the other up and down and all around levels, sort of naturally works against speed. This level has a lot of short hidden routes in it that you might be able to find some cool like workarounds. Like this level has a lot of short hidden routes in it that you might be able to find some cool workarounds. You can even feel the classic Sonic design choices throughout the level, like the little half pipes that they have halfway through the stage. It's not a terrible level overall. Like, guess which pointless wisp makes a completely unnecessary return, completely throwing off the concept and flow of the level just to add an extra minute of bland gameplay. If you said drill was bad, you're right. Come up and claim your prize. Although it's drill was may be bad, but it's not as bad as Zora Mental's condition. You know, like holy smokes, this Eddie needs some help.
Smiling hurts my face. When I hurt your face, it'll make me smile. So in the end, I'll just be hurting myself. Cool.
We've gone full circle now. We've gone from Windy Hill to a whole bunch of other pretty generic but good-looking stages. And in Sky Road, we're right back at Windy Hill. Like, I guess it took us that long to get to the real Windy Hill Act 2. Like, I mean, with a name like Sky Road, you'd assume we'd be like in the Babylon Garden or something. Regardless, this level is literally just a stripped down version of Windy Hill with forced combat and like more automation involved. When I say stripped down, I mean like there's like a lot less unique cuts through this level, like a lot less, you know, geography and real estate to work with. As you know, the amount of ground to stand on has significantly decreased. Overall, it's a good and challenging level to run through once you know how to get over the enemies, and it's one of the only stages where a wisp is useful and not mandatory for usage. It's also the last remotely good stage in the game. Like this is it. Like, game over. This is the last good stage, and we just got to Sky Road. Like, seriously. So, Zone 2 is just another Super Mario level in disguise. It almost does something interesting with like its boss fight. You fight Zavok's giant cyber dragon, but you're still on one of these like small King Kai planets instead of a setting that gives the dragon an advantage. It's also another like one and done boss fight where it doesn't take much effort other than like a string of homing attacks for you to hit Zavok. Zone 3, it's a nice callback to the classic games, but like many of the other stages, it just doesn't belong here. It really doesn't. So Zone 4 is like rhythm wisp pointless levels of bad. Like, Zone 4 is the Bowser Castle ripoff. All the possible enemies they could have brought back, they bring back the literal ghost from the past. Oh, the irony. Like, I'd check for skeletons in Sonic Team's closet, but we already know what's in there. You go up through this level like some sort of ice climber, and you reach the top with some sand sections in between. Then you have another boss fight that doesn't feel like epic or engaging enough to be satisfying. Like, hell, look, if Sky Road didn't have that first zone, it would probably be the worst area yet. Like, Sky Road would probably be the worst yet. But it can't be as bad as Lava Mountain. So, imagine having a boss rush in the game where every single boss fight was underwhelming. That's what Lava Mountain is, with a little space in between for a small platform. Like in Zone 1. So imagine the bosses being so easy that the only way you could think of to make the bosses difficult is to put an insta-death on the stage that gets bigger with each boss that you defeat.
Bruh.
Like, Zone 2 is an actual stage, but it's not very original. It's the return of this long, serene cutscene. Like, it retakes the theme and aesthetic from Tropical Resort, or I mean Tropical Coast, not Tropical Resort, and makes it more difficult by featuring, you know, the Pokemon Carkol. And when you touch these Pokemon, you die immediately. How engaging! Zone 3 is like the second phase of the boss rush. They mixed in this zone with like Bowser Castle. Again, it's like this time with literal lava chasing you, and some short 3D sections. Zora and Xena barely put up a fight, and honestly feel like their boss fights have no reason to be here, other than the developers wanted you to fight every Deadly Six member all over again. Like, Zavok almost did something interesting again, having a boss fight here with two different phases, but the first phase can be like finished in like one homing attack if you stand behind Zavok, which isn't hard to execute, funny enough, because he leaves a space behind him when he jumps onto the platform that you're on. The second phase, where he definitely isn't copying Bowser. He's not copying Bowser, don't say that.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
He turns big like a final phase, you know, Power Rangers villain without the cool Megazord to beat him up. You know, the mechanics of the game may work against you in this boss fight, but it's probably one of the most genuinely difficult fights that you may experience in this game. Zone 4, well, I guess this is the Megazord that was supposed to beat up Zavik. But yeah, so the Deadly Six are gone, Tails is back, and oh no, Eggman wants to battle since he's actually the final villain. Yeah, 3 hits and he's done. Oh wait, that's it? Like, game over? Wait, I was just joking. Wait, don't go.
Oh, can you do the trailer guy voice?
In a world found only after beating the game, take a trip to a land where the levels, though quirky, have no point of existing, especially not in a Sonic game.
What are we left to do in this game? Well, if you remember, each stage had those red ring things, so maybe collect all of them and call it a day. Oh snap, they actually unlocked the Chaos Emeralds with all 7. I can now have unlimited power. Nothing in this world can stop me. Yes, this is it. Everything in this game led me up to this point. Finally, this game has reached peak performance. Okay, now let's go to Windy Hill with this newfound power and let these pathetic badniks feel my wrath. Like wow, this is awesome. I'm moving so fast. I'm invincible. I take back everything I said about this game. This game's great. No, like 10 out of 10, 11 out of 12. Don't even criticize this game. There's not what? Hello? Excuse me. What? Why did I just go back to normal form? I still have over 50 rings. So I really can't be supersonic in this section. Wait, so what's the point of supersonic being in the game? Then if I lose my rings in this section, it's goodbye supersonic? Like, how redundant is this? Did they really not program super into these sections? You know, like, well, call me a clogged toilet because I can't handle this shit anymore. They really did supersonic dirty in this game. Like, I can't believe how limited they made this mechanic feel. So now, more than half of these stages, like getting supersonic, is pointless because he goes away at points where it feels like he needed the most. Like, he's like the Avatar or something, you know? There are a few stages where super form is like legitimately useful, like, you know, Desert Ruins Act 1 or Frozen Factory Act 4, the stage I mentioned earlier. Supersonic makes it a lot better. And there are levels where a lot of obstacles get in your way normally, where Super can just breeze through them like it's no pushover. But it's just really unfortunate how limited they made Supersonic feel in this game when in the 3DS version, Supersonic turns the game into like this high-speed adrenaline ride. But here, in the more simple game, it somehow makes itself barely useful outside of a few stages. Like, woohoo! You know, this stupid Snowball can go super form, but not during auto-run sections. It's so counterintuitive. Oh, man. Looking at this game, there's one word to describe it perfectly. Mario. I mean, it's a word a good number of people in the community use to describe a game like this. Like, how else do you explain why this game feels like classic Sonic attempting to fuse with 3D Mario? The run button, the level design, the everything. It just feels like classic Sonic mixing with Mario. I'm joking, of course, you know, that the word is actually simple. You know, like, not just simple, but like too simple. You know, like, I don't think this game takes risks that evolve its gameplay. Rather, it takes gimmicks that do the opposite. And it fills a game with automation, like, in between. Even, like, Supersonic was toned down with its utility being close to none because of how simplistic this game is. Being simplistic in itself isn't a problem, and I think it would have been fine if this game wasn't trying so hard to be like 10 different things at once. I said this earlier, but the reason why this game bothers me so much compared to other Sonic games is that there's a product to compare it to, which makes this game look like it could have been something better. The 3DS version. And if you have a negative opinion about the 3DS version, you might wonder why I hold it in such high regard. Like, I value it because despite a few hiccups with like level design and wisps, it delivers an experience like unrivaled by other Sonic games. Like, the way it mixes parkour into its gameplay with wisps and boss fights, making everything feel worthwhile, from the levels to the abundance of extra content, like extra stages and hard mode. Meanwhile, the Wii U version feels so dry, like when the extra stages all feel like they don't belong. Like one even feeling like it was made for Happy Wheels.
Bottle run, please, my boy. Come on, man. They know I'm an expert on this. Hold up.
Like it's even worse when your own mechanics, like RC vehicles, which you probably forgot in the game. Let's be honest. And Wisps have almost no real purpose as well. Like RC vehicles, they can only be controlled by a second player, so you need to play with someone else with another Wii remote to use RC vehicles, and they control like garbage. Like they control horribly. Like they really don't work. And the only time a Wisp felt remotely useful was the Eagle Wisp in Skyroad Zone 1, which I mentioned earlier. Like, even the boss fights are like incredibly dumbed down. They're like the equivalent of like the character fights from like Sonic Adventure 1.
Oh no! Oh no! Give it your best shot! Oh no!
Oh no! The Chaos Emeralds!
It's a lot better in the 3DS version where the bosses have actual health bars and take more than 1 or 2 charge up hits to kill. But rather, with the proper technique and the mastery of Wisps, you can find shortcuts to beat the boss fights. Is that not more interesting? Like, the boss rush near the end of the game doesn't actually feel like a drag, and the final boss actually feels like a final boss, you know? The 3DS game felt like it did what the Wii U game should have done, and more. You want to give Lost World a classic Sonic aesthetic? Cool, you know, that's fine, but if you're gonna put modern Sonic in there, make sure it feels like a callback to modern Sonic as well, instead of feeling like Mario. Like, I'll forever find this Wii U version as a disappointment because I'll always feel like it did less than the 3DS version when it should have done more. However, after everything that I said, I need to state that I don't think the Wii U version of Lost World is a terrible game. When it works, it's good, but it just doesn't work enough with its own mechanics to be a truly fulfilling experience. And that's not even talking about the mess of the story. Like, I wonder what happened during the Wii U's version's development that made Sonic Team stunt their effort in making the levels like more dynamic, and in my research I think I figured it out. So look at these numbers. Lost World started development after Sonic Colors and went full scale after the release of Generations in 2011. So all through 2012, the 3DS is doing amazing in sales, reaching 17 million by the end of Q1 2012, and nearly 30 million by the end of 2012. So with numbers that large, they knew that the 3DS market was like bustling, and they didn't want to waste any opportunity, right? So I didn't know why this wasn't obvious to me from the beginning, but this is a Wii U, you know, like being released after the 3DS and having a lower projected sales, you know, than the 3DS in that time period. I think Sonic Team opted for a more focused, tight controlling 3D platformer on the 3DS, and the colorfully laid back but sophisticated controlled platformer with a mix of 2D and 3D on the Wii U. Sonic Team and Dimps were experienced with the capabilities of the 3DS, their work on Generations for the 3DS, and they wanted to focus on the gamepad with the Wii U. So knowing more kids and consumers had the 3DS, they put their resources into making sure the 3DS title was like a must-buy, in Iizuka's own words. The Wii U's good stages had similar design philosophy, but they took a lot more detours with the focus in like level design and with the gimmicks and with the stage layout. Iizuka even described the game similar to like Alice in Wonderland, where you feel like you're going down a rabbit hole and each stage is supposed to be something different. Like, I want to enjoy this game. But as I mentioned before with like the Two Sisters example, as much as I like to love this game, like thanks to the 3DS version, this game's like inner workings sort of work against itself. And it makes it feel draining to play. Even like most of the mods for this game feel like they lack passion. Like, I want to stress, like, despite my problems with this game's mechanics, I don't think it's a terrible game overall. I just don't think it's good. I just think all of its potential was wasted because the level designers refused to make a single playstyle as a focal point and focused on gimmicks half of the time, and was too simplistic in the other half, not pushing itself to its limits. So in conclusion, Sonic Lost World, you're not ugly, but you disappoint me.
My unveiling. I will be exposed to the entire world. When the time of the prophecy comes, when all is revealed, then the people of the world will rejoice, already knowing who I am.